Hello and welcome to the North America Gaelic Football Podcast, the home of Gaelic football here in North America. I'm your host, Gareth McAlinden, along with our co-host, Limerick's finest, Connor Green. Before we get kicked off, just want a quick shout out to our sponsors, Masita, who's been the sponsor of the US GAA for the last number of years. Just remember, Nationals are coming up. Get your orders in for your kits, your jerseys, your training tops, before the big day comes in August. So without further ado, we got a good one tonight. The big rivalry, Worcester, Hartford, Rory McGloin. Rory, what's the crack? How are you?
Pleasure to be here, Gareth. Connor, thanks very much for having me. The very first day that I saw the show coming out, I thought you guys were crazy to try to pull this off, and you have exceeded my expectations by a long shot. So I just want to say congratulations to both of you for keeping it going. It's not easy to do this. I know that personally, and I just think that it's been fantastic. You're opening up conversations. You're allowing a lot of people to have access to things that they wouldn't have. So just fair play to both of you, and I wish you a lot of luck going forward here with the show.
Cheers, Rory. Well, with that being said, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your journey, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So Gareth and Connor and I, of course, we know each other well on the field, but we probably haven't done a lot of self-disclosure maybe off the field. So my journey starts in Hartford in 1984, but prior to me, my mother would have come over in the summer of 1969. She immigrated and settled her way to Hartford, Connecticut. She cleaned homes for the next 3 decades. My father would have left his home in Donegal and Ballyshannon in the summer, give or take around 56, and landed in Hartford. And he worked his way all across the Northeast, building bridges and setting steel. And he would have met my mother in the Irish American home in Glastonbury, where our home pitch is. Somewhere in the early 80s. And as they say, the rest is history. I came along and was born into a culture of the GAA. Growing up as a kid in my home, just in the northern part of Connecticut, every day it was, you're Irish, your name's Rory, get it right, let them know where you're from and where you're going. And the GAA was like the backbone of kind of the way that I was brought up. It was about community. It was looking after one another. The games were serious business on a Sunday. And one of my earliest memories of Gaelic football would have been going back in the summers to my cousins in West Cavan in a parish called Curla. I used to go and I'd participate in the games, and I would play as a child, 6 and 7 and 8, and you'd be getting serious harassment as the Yank over there. And so the only way you'd get any respect is if you were any good. And so you were working really hard to try to be of any use to the coaches that they might put you in a game. And eventually I found my way onto the field. And those are some of my first memories. Growing up, Donegal and Cavan, would have been playing in a lot of Ulster games. And I decided at a young age that I was going to root for the boys on the hill. And so all my club mates around, they kind of know me as a Donegal supporter. And I think 1992, Donegal's first All-Ireland galvanized that for me as an 8-year-old at the time. That was a big deal. And that really kind of, that was really where I fell in love with the whole thing. Spent my teenage years spending all my summers in Ireland and having a home over there now in Donegal. Just every part of my life was really back in Ireland. So to this day, to my cousins, to my family, my aunts and uncles, my friends up in the north of Ireland, they know what GAA has meant to me, and it's been a home away from home, no matter where I've gone. So that's a little bit about kind of how I got so heavily indoctrinated into this game and into this culture.
Yeah, you must have stood out a bit there. I imagine that you have no choice but to turn into a bit of a psycho on the field. They'll always be like, that's soft yank.
Yeah. There was a ton of. I mean, and you don't realize it when you're 8 or 9 or 16 or 24, but they loved you, and that was their way of kind of showing it. It was a bit strange and it was a bit different, but it definitely put a chip on my shoulder. I'll say this, that I probably carry with me to this day. Being American born, but of course, 2 Irish parents and considering myself Irish and all the things that go with it. I wanted to represent the American athletes at a certain age that felt like, hey, look, it's a round ball and it's a pitch and we can all play. And so that chip kind of stayed on the shoulder for a long time of saying, like, why can't we be just as competitive as you? And I think that probably feeds into some of the dynamic that we'll get into the conversation tonight as to what football means to us here in America, and how we're building communities around, whether it's American-born players or wherever the community is located. But yeah, without a doubt, Connor took a lot of harassment as a kid, but looking back, I'm better for it, and I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. Now, a little bit outside football as well. Now you're a professor at UConn, is that right?
Yeah, I came to UConn in 2006. I didn't really know much about college, to be honest with you, Gareth. It just kind of was something that, I was told that I was going to do, and came to UConn to get a master's because I really didn't know what else I was going to do at the time. Fell in love with kind of the idea of being in a classroom, being able to coach, train, develop, help people improve their communication skills. And I've been at UConn for 17 years. I've had a great opportunity to do some really cool things while at UConn, not just coaching students, but I've had a chance to work with a lot of our different organizations on campus and coaching leaders, coaching athletes to present themselves in a way that's compelling, to be able to tell their story in a way that hopefully helps them in some way. So that's had a huge influence on my life, the way that I see the world, the way I think about our organization and how we can improve. And then more recently, kind of in a privileged position, I suppose we might say, I had a chance to open my own company. And that was a blessing because as somebody who grew up watching his parents work as laborers, who worked for others, who probably didn't have the opportunity with where they were to start their own business, for me to do that was an achievement. And it was hopefully a way to respect the effort that they had put in their journey, and to say, like, look, I made something here, and hopefully I'll be able to use my organization to lift up others, to employ others, to create opportunities for others, kind of in that same way. And it's actually helped me get connected with a lot of Irish companies that are actually still looking to head west. So there's something cool where I get an opportunity sometimes to help a company that might be coming over here. So there's a chance to kind of reach the arm back and help the next group that's coming over.
Nice. Speaking of coming over, actually, we've talked about it a couple of times on the podcast before, I think at least once anyway, about Tig Leader and the kicking program. I saw he was actually over visiting you guys. Is that right?
Yeah, that's great. Well done, Connor. And so you're following along, which I appreciate. So kind of like yourselves, had been following Tig for a while, saw the story, was connected up in a group in Boston. Somebody pinged me. They said, this fella Tig's coming over. You got to meet him. We had a meeting a couple months before he came over. We hit it off immediately. He's such a great guy. He's got a great story. And he said, look, I'm going to be driving relatively through the area. And of course, kind of like the way that we are, it was like, you have to stop. You have to come. Because I wanted him to see what we had in Hartford. I wanted him to see the community. It just so happened to get to show up on a Friday night, youths out in the field. There's like 65 kids out there playing. There's music on the patio. And he's got the two young boys with him that were over looking for the scholarships. And I think it was something that probably made their journey, hopefully, a little better. The next morning, we happened to have had an inter-squad scrimmage scheduled. And so we said, you have to come. You got to come play. The lads came out. They ran around a bit with us. They played a bit of Gaelic. When it was all done, we all had a punting and a field goal kicking competition. The next day, as the story went, one of the fellas went to UConn, and he put on an outrageously good performance. And I talked to Tig that night. I said, how did it go at UConn? He said he closed the place down. And there was a little piece of me, of course, knowing Ross, obviously tremendous athlete, comes from a family of actually great athletes. His story is really unique. But I kind of thought to myself, like, I really hope that maybe he came and on that Friday night or that Saturday morning, he went back to his roots. So when he showed up on Sunday, he was kind of like, I belong here, right? Like, I have friends. I have a community here. So that was a huge moment for us. And for me too, for the company, for RPM, we want to support Tig, and we want to support Tig's athletes. So when they're coming over, as they present themselves and do their coaching interviews, that's something that is kind of a dream come true for us to help those types of athletes. So yeah, I got a chance to hook up with Tig, and fair play to Tig and his kickers and the two boys that got Ross and Ronan, who got scholarships. Congrats to them. And hopefully we haven't seen the last of them coming through Hartford at least. And maybe we'll bring them up to Worcester sometime.
Yeah, no, it's a cool story. Like, I'd say there's a lot of people almost kicking themselves if they didn't think of it first. Like there's no real sport like Gaelic football, like where there's just such a heavy emphasis on that long big boot. So just transferring that over to to American football is very interesting.
Yeah, it was cool to have Irish guys coming over kicking field goals on our Gaelic pitch, and the American guys standing around watching the Irish guys kick field goals in their sport. That was that was a pretty cool spectacle, and I think it's probably exemplary of where we should be heading for GAA in terms of getting Americans going over to Crow Park someday and doing the same and saying, watch this, right? Well, look what I've brought to the game. Maybe there's something that they'll be able to figure it out. So they did the show there a few years ago, right? The toughest trade and swapping the players over. I thought that type of content from a GAA standpoint is what we need more of to show like the behind the scenes part of what it takes to be a great footballer, a great hurler. So yeah, I had the same reaction though, Connor. I was like, everybody had the idea and he just, that's what entrepreneurs do, right? A million people can walk by the same problem, and that entrepreneur is going to be the one person that goes, I can fix that. And I really hope that he takes the world by storm. I really do.
Yeah, that was the show, The Toughest Trade. A fantastic show. And they had, I think it was a guy that played with the Dolphins. And I think he went to a club up in Donegal for playing. And I think, wasn't it, what's his name? Murphy.
Michael Murphy.
Michael Murphy then went over and, or no, it was Aidan O'Shea.
Michael Murphy did rugby, and then Aidan O'Shea went over and did the combine.
Yeah, Aidan O'Shea did the combine, that's right. But it is interesting, like you've seen Aidan O'Shea out there, and they could just, for somebody who literally just picked this sport up, they're like, Jesus, he's just a natural. Imagine if he had 4 or 5 years, these guys who are at the top level, give them time in a sport and they'll excel.
Yeah.
Even like these kids coming over now and kicking, maybe that's more of an avenue for more Irish people coming over here. And, you see schools like UConn and even Notre Dame now with Gaelic football and hurling programs really kicking off. UConn's had a very successful Gaelic football and hurling, which I'm sure, Rory, you could probably touch base on a little bit. But it's great to see, and more Irish people.
That's definitely one of, like, for getting GAA going and for young kids, that could be one of the good selling points, I think, like, especially if you're going to try out hurling and football, there's so many other sports you could potentially just pick up, like, easily enough, right after that.
It's the sales pitch that I'm often given to the parents of youth players. If you're a GAA man, right, like we are in our communities, like you're never not recruiting. Every conversation I have is almost always, what are you doing on Wednesday? What are you doing on Friday? Or, and it's fun too when you get in conversation with some of the older men or women, and they'll say, oh, I'm an athlete. And you're going, great, Wednesday at 6:30, you can come show us, the athleticism. But going back to the kids, Connor, you're trying to kind of convince parents to say, it literally is a combination of pretty much every sport or every athletic, need that your child might want. And we've been trying to talk to parents in our program about saying, we understand that you're likely going to pick a traditional Big 4, Big 5 sport as your one. What do we need to do to get football and hurling to be your 1B or to be your bona fide number 2? We recognize that beating out some are going to be tough, but we'd like to get to a place where it's like it's baseball and then it's hurling, right? Or it's it's flag football or American football and then it's Gaelic football. And I think the parents who have trusted us and have been with us now for kind of the rejuvenation of, and we'll talk about this, like where we've been at for the last several years here. There have been parents that have trusted us, and one of the things is nice is when a parent comes back to our program and says, my son or daughter was more aggressive, they're more assertive, they're more confident, they're more respectful, like they're coachable. And we've seen some kids transform. And I think it's because the GAA culture in a youth program for us that we've noticed particularly is like, there's a bit of respect. There's a bit of the way that we organize ourselves would be, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to go about our business. And we don't necessarily see that in all fabrics of youth recreational sports here in the States. I love my Friday nights with the kids because it gives me an opportunity to know that the kids that are there, some of them drove 20, 30, 40 minutes. They want to be there. Those are people that you love to invest in. And the athleticism is progressing because we're seeing success in some of these young people. They're track and field stars. They're basketball stars. They're Irish step dancing champions. And so we definitely put a feather in our cap whenever we see one of our youngsters doing well. We're thinking that's a Hartford GAA player there.
And also a cost element. It is so expensive for kids, and that's Robbie Croft probably said it best. It's the cheapest daycare you could think. Gaelic football. You send your kid out there for an hour and a half, and for a season, it costs buttons compared to some of the club sports for pretty much the same thing. And just getting as much out of the Gaelic football hurling programs, if not more, than some of these local programs.
Yeah, if not more. And I think the thing that, has stood out to a testament to us is that you're bringing people from, in our case, and likely would be the case for Worcester, right? Is like you're bringing people from multiple towns, at least in Hartford. That means that people are showing up with no agenda, right? That means that whatever your in-town politics are, whatever your relationship was, whatever, you do in town, it really doesn't carry over. Are you on time? Can you volunteer? Are you able to help out on Saturday? That's the social capital that carries weight. And for me, it's a great equalizer. And I think that's, to me, what GAs should be about, is that it doesn't really matter what you do Monday through Friday, what your zip code is, right? When you show up, it's, are you here? Are you present? Can you give? Do you want to be ready to receive from the community? And that's something that stands a testament where we compare. My daughter's now 10, and we see the other sports that we have available to us in town or throughout the state. And I just can't say there's just nothing beats like the Gaelic community and, the way that those relationships are forged. They just seem to be more genuine in some ways, a bit more authentic, because it is built around community first, as opposed to, I'm trying to get a scholarship, I'm trying to go to college, I'm trying to be pro. We're trying to say, are you a good person, right? Do you do the little things the right way? That'll probably stand for a lot longer than whatever you're doing this summer for whatever sport you're in.
Yeah, it's got to be, GA has to be, hurling and football, the least individualistic sports. A lot of that just comes from the culture back home. Like, you've got your club, that's your club for life. You can be as good as you want, but you still be playing for the same club, So
yeah.
And what you guys have down there, is obviously a testament to Hartford as well, and the community that's built there. But as a family, for Friday nights to get down there and play football, and to have, the bar and the restaurant there, it is like one little community there, and people are probably spending their evenings there, and they enjoy that Friday night, so it's a testament to you. And I think you said you had 65 kids out there on a Friday night.
Yeah, any given Friday night. It's probably worth telling a bit of a story, Connor, how we kind of got there, and a little bit of what's worked for us for other clubs that might be, wondering a little bit. If we look at COVID for a moment, right, it obviously changed everybody's world, and it forced us to probably rethink a lot of things. So, the spring of 2020 rolled around, and it would have put everybody on hiatus, including ourselves. And so one of the things that stands out as I reflected back, because somebody had asked me, like, what happened? How did it work? And when did the catalyst kind of get reignited here in Hartford? Because we'd had a great success 2010, 11, 12. Like, there was a group there, and there was a youth program pushed through. And kind of when they went through, we saw this little gap again. So the biggest change was Friday nights. And as you said, Gareth, I said to a few of the lads as we were planning, I said, we need families. I need moms and dads. I need grandmas and grandpas, and I need them to be able to go into the pub, have a pint, see their friends, have dinner with the kids afterwards. Because now we have access. Now we have FaceTime. We weren't competing with any other sport in town. Not only were we not competing on Friday night, but we were the only show to open back up that fall. And I'd love to just, give a shout out to, there were so many people that put in so much time for, if you remember, we were all crazy about hand sanitizers and registrations and logins. And I mean, there were people that stepped out to do all that stuff, which would be outside of the scope of anything I'm good at. And that basically reignited. And the thing that I'll say is this, is it made us deliberate. It made us intentional to say, if we don't do this, it's going to die. And it's going to die on our watch. And I think there was probably a little sense of urgency for a handful of us who had seen it go around a few times. We said it can't happen on our watch. And instead, the response was really good. Friday nights was massive. So for any clubs out there that are, maybe looking to think about what are the little things that can be done, I think you have to find the right time in the schedule where mom, dad, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, everybody can come down, because then they all become a part of it. And those relationships are what make us want to go down the next Friday and the next Friday. And then one other piece of thing that should be said, and genuinely acknowledge we do have a great home down there, a tremendous amount of history in those walls. And over the last few years in particular, we would have received great support from the administrators, from the presidents and the organizers, where they, recognize, they said GAA is what we're all about. And they've really given us the kind of support to just say, we're proud of you, go forward, enjoy, let us know how we can help. And that doesn't cost anything, right? But it makes a huge difference, because I could tell you stories over the years of, like, if you bring down a great young recruit, some American athlete, and you're going, okay, hey, look, this guy has potential. You bring down a family, you go, hey, this family's got 3 young children. They're good people. And they go into the pub, they go into the restaurant, they go into wherever your sponsor is, right? And if they don't have an exceptional experience, it's like, oh no, it's like a reflection back to me. Like, they didn't have a great time. Something maybe didn't go right. When they go into the home on a Friday night and they meet some of the people that are down there, and everybody has a Cade Mila-Falcha waiting for them, like, come in, sit down, what can I get you? That's when they realize, and Connor, you just said it, it's like something you can't get anywhere else. Like, that doesn't happen after baseball. It doesn't happen after the lacrosse games. And that's not to take away, but the culture is different. And so usually when we set the hook in a family or a new recruit, it comes down to, this is different and I love it, right? And then there's always some people that are going to say, this is different and I got to get out of here. Like, this is crazy. But so there was a lot of little things, and I don't think it takes much. I think it's about creating a really good atmosphere and putting it at a time that people can get access to, and then you let your people do the rest.
Yeah. A lot of it in GA is just getting them in the door, like, isn't it? Just get them to come out once, try it out, have a bit of crack with the lads. They'll be hooked for life then before you know it.
Yeah.
I will definitely encourage, if anybody's maybe watching this from out of town, that's never been up in the Northeast, or maybe they've been to Canton, maybe the future does hold, a tournament where, junior clubs from other, like the Pittsburghs, even Buffalo, New York, or like some of them places where, to really go down and see that setup. Because, I mean, we went down there last year and it is a fantastic setup. I mean, the field is fantastic, beautiful grass field. The bar setup's great. The grandmothers had the sausage rolls. There was a woman from Armagh there, and she had oh, yep, I've been making the sausage rolls all morning. Ham and cheese out. What can I get you, lads? No problem. And it was just like being at home. Yeah. It was class. And that's I definitely highly encourage. If you're gonna look at a place to, it's like, as maybe a junior club with the aspirations to grow, that is that Hartford is the stepping stone. That's where we look to be. I mean, as much as we obviously have our battles on the field, there is a lot of respect there to say, Hartford are doing great things. Whether it's the men's football, now the men's hurling, the kids, and even move on now with the ladies team.
Yeah.
Now you have is that the first ever ladies Gaelic football team?
Yep. First of all, just Connor, like, those words I know will be appreciated by every single person in our club and the Irish home. So those folks that are watching, they mean a lot, and I appreciate that. There's a lot of work that goes into it, as you guys know, and so anytime that respect is shared, it's obviously received. So appreciate that. Yeah. So the ladies, I think over the last decade or so, there had been some trainings, and there was, maybe a ladies' night, and maybe they had a couple things. And, I think that the club probably wasn't set up, and there wasn't sustainability when those first kind of efforts went down. And so when I made an announcement there at one stage back in 2022, I went in front of the Irish American home. I said, we're going to have a ladies football team and be the first one ever. I received a few comments from folks saying there were training sessions. So I went back and corroborated the story, because I didn't want to be stepping on anybody's toes. Whatever it is, whether it's the first, second, third, or whatever, it's here. We exist, and it's certainly the first time that the team's ever competed, that they've ever had their own kit, that they've been entered into a championship. And it's, probably one of the biggest pieces of pride that I would have in my relative, tenure with the Hartford GAA club is being involved with that program and its launch.
And does your wife play with the ladies team too?
Yeah. So so ladies' situation and the way it unfolded was very organic for me in my house. So Friday night, I've been bringing Mairead down since she was, 3 and then 4. And of course I was playing, and, my dream would have always been to have had, son or daughter, go out and play football. And I'm fortunate that Mairead just loved it. She took to it, and we play together. So anyways, Mairead's 8 and 9, and I'm looking around. And so if I go back to my childhood in Hartford, there was tremendous men's success up through the 80s and the early 90s. Right as I'm turning 7, 8, and 9, the program kind of drifted into a bit of dormancy there, mid 90s. And there were shifts in organization. And to make a long story short, they didn't have an active youth program in the mid 90s, right when I've been playing. Now, I would have been gone back to Ireland every summer anyways, so I did have the chance to play, but my peers didn't. And to this day, my friends that are in their late 30s, they talk about, I wish I had a chance to play. So anyways, now I'm seeing my daughter. She's playing in the games, and, I'm kind of getting a little nostalgic for myself, and I'm kind of looking at her. I'm like, where is her and her teammates? And we have this huge group right now of like 10 to 12-year-old girls. There's like 15 of them, and they're great, and I love them, and they're like all my kids. And I just kind of was overwhelmed by this idea. I said, these young ladies deserve a chance to play somewhere with Hartford when they graduate. And I'm literally out there on a Friday night, and I'm going through these nostalgic moments as I do in my head. And I'm genuinely like looking on the sidelines, and it's moms, right? And I know some of them, and then I know that there's some of the girlfriends from some of the lads that are coaching. They're over there. And so basically it was just a matter of like rolling the ball up to a few of them and saying, do you want to come give it a go next Friday? Just bring your boots. And the rest is history. The first practice that we had that was formal, I think there were 7 of us. We have a photo of that night. And then the next night it was 12. And like the next night it was 20. And I was like, oh, we might have something here. So we trained throughout the fall of 22, kind of informally, just seeing what it was like and what it was going to do. And one of the things that was so impressive was the work rate of the women was genuinely like, exceptional. Their toughness, their perseverance, they wanted to improve every week. They were coachable. And I was having a great time out there. And so, there was really no question asked. If I tell the story honestly, there wasn't a question of like, are we going to do this or bring it to the board? It was just like, this is happening. Like, and I think if we look around the culture of where we are right now, a lot of organizations, a lot of governments and institutions, there's obviously a lot of talk about what can we do and making a difference. And I just said, let's not talk about it. Let's just do it, and let's create an opportunity, and the rest is history. It's a family affair these days, Gareth. One of the coolest days in my relative kind of GA life was when we came up for the first game of the season there against Portland. We got off the bus, and it was the ladies came off first, and my wife and her teammates got off, and then the hurlers were there and the footballers were there. Mairead got off, and she had her kit bag, and she marched over, and she played a youth game. And so Mairead played, and Megan played, and I played on the same day. And that was pretty cool. Like, I never would have thought that would have happened. Megan has been dragged to Clonus probably at least a dozen times. She's gone to Ulster finals. We flew over to see Donegal play Mayo in 2012. That was a really special moment to be in the stadium for that win. So Megan would have been, kind of immersed in Gaelic. And I think she said, right, look, if everybody else can play, I'm going to give it a go. And she represents so many other, kind of maybe former athletes, women that hadn't played in 10, 15 years, coming back and finding something for themselves and thinking, yeah, like, why not me? So you'll enjoy this picture on a Friday night. You'll have the ladies training 6:30 to 8, and you'll have at least like 7 or 8 of the lads holding babies, pushing prams, looking after the kids while, mom or the girlfriend's out on the field training. And that's been cool. And I think that it's helped maybe even some relationships, probably some of the guys appreciating, geez, this is a lot of work. And I go out every Wednesday and I never think twice about, leaving to go to training. And so it's been fun. People stay afterwards. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of smiles. There's a lot of good times happening around the Hartford club right now. And it's fun to be a part of.
Yeah, no, Gaelic football in particular, like, can really be a family affair, can't it? It was always open to anyone, but we figured we'd go and like put an announcement out. Girls are welcome to come training with us anytime. And, you know, like myself, like my own girlfriend arrived on the training there last week, and there was 2 or 3 other girls that came for the first time and just loved it. Like, you know, it's like, you know, you can play physical if you want to, you know, but you don't have to. Like, there's lots of different ways to play Gaelic football, you know, so you can really let these people join in. Like, you know, it's not a big deal to let them join in at all.
Yeah, I think
she even had her first point.
First point, yeah.
Yeah, I have found the game to be exceptionally accessible to ladies who are either coming from another sport or who haven't played. You know, it's funny how you grow up playing football, you think nothing about putting your toe into the ball to pick it up and you move on. And then you go out and you start coaching ladies football, and no toe into the ball means it's actually coached differently, right? So there's the speed. Now I'm coming up with different pickup drills because the pickup's different. And I'm watching the ladies just tear into the ball. Like, the ball's on the ground and they're going, I'm coming to get it. And it's been fun for me. It's helped me evolve the way that I've seen the game and appreciate the skill of the game. But it is accessible. So if there's any of your lady listeners out there and they're on the fence, like, don't even hesitate, because I guarantee you'll love the community, and the game itself is just super fun. And you'll find that you have some skill that almost immediately translates in a way that you hopefully you'll fall in love with it.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that about the pickup. Actually, I was like, you know, that would make things an awful lot easier for us. Like, that's probably the hardest thing to coach, like a brand new American player, isn't it? You know, it's a foreign kind of a movement to them. Like, and they're trying to do it perfect. Like, they're trying to be perfect, and I'm like, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, just put your fucking toe on there. But yeah,
and there's so many different ways. Yeah, you can flick it up, and then, you know, when obviously they get a little bit confident, then they try the flick ups, and it's like, you know, you're trying to coach the get down and pick it up, because that one time they do it in a game and they fuck it up. And it's like, don't ever fucking do that again.
It's like the one hand on the hurley in hurling, you know, it's like nobody says a word if you pick it up first time, but, you know, you go down and you mess it up and you scoop it in front of yourself and the other person steals it off you. Next thing you know, they're all screaming at you.
Yeah, for sure.
So should we get into the good stuff?
Yeah.
The junior C division, in my opinion, probably one of the more success stories in the last few years, in my opinion, anyway. But I think one of the biggest things that's come out of it has been that rivalry between Worcester and Hartford. I think there was a big need for, you know, for anybody that doesn't really know the junior C division, it's very unique. So it is home base only, no sanctioned players, but you can only have 3 Irishborn on the field. You have to have 10 American-born kids on that field. You know, so for you guys, Rory, you know, that came natural to you guys, because even when you guys were playing in the junior B division, most of your players were all American, right?
100%. 100%. The junior C division could not have come at a better time for Hartford. And yeah, laughably, Gareth, like, I hear that rule and I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, that is what we were doing. And we were going up against competition that we would tip our cap to on a weekly basis. The junior B division in the Northeast, for those folks who don't participate in the Northeast, it's exceptionally good. It's a very high standard. It's full of a lot of great Irish players. And we were going up and playing against top quality competition every weekend. And we were doing it with first-year American players. And while that was exciting for me to see these men go up and play a sport that they had never played, and to compete and to contest, and there's stories in Hartford that are told from an era where there weren't wins right on the scoreboard, but geez, those were great games, and we really put the testament. The problem is that when you're trying to recruit and retain an American player, an athlete that is exceptional at their natural sport. So we have guys that would have grown up playing baseball and American football and basketball, and you're trying to get them to come and join and to stay in an organization. If they go up and they play 4 games and they're not competitive in those 4 games, and this is somebody who's an exceptional athlete who has accolades and trophies and medals from their other sports, they look and they say, am I really going to invest my time in this thing that requires copious amounts of training that I'm not exceptional at yet, when I could just go back to my other sport and just be great. Now, the handful that ever stayed with us, right, those people would have challenged themselves. And in my opinion, they became exceptional people, because doing things that are uncomfortable are good for you. At the same time, if the GA is built around being a community, then like we are responsible of not just supporting ourselves, but supporting an atmosphere that allows others to be successful. So Junior C changed the trajectory, particularly for the men's team in Hartford, because we were running up against a situation where we had invested so much in recruiting American players. And we actually believe that was, and we still believe that is the right thing, that that's how we want to model ourselves. And yet we didn't feel like we were being rewarded on the field for those efforts. We often would wonder, you guys would appreciate this. Like, we'd go and play the junior B teams, and they were exceptionally good. And we'd give them really good games, and we would have wins over the years. We often were wondered, going, if we travel with this team and we take it outside the Northeast, like, where do we stack up? We had no idea like where we were on the circuit, right? Because we only could hold ourselves accountable to the division we were in. So Junior C is great. It's a huge accomplishment for the entire Northeast, but it's exciting for this. You would ask the question, what does the rivalry mean? Human nature requires an opponent, right? In order for us to drive or to strive or to progress, like, we sometimes manufacture, right, something that you're trying to achieve or overcome. We're very fortunate in the sense that we have this to share with each other. I think that Worcester and Hartford being the same division, there's years of hurling competition matches there. Now we've added this like incredibly competitive football series. I don't think that there's been only maybe one or two games over the last several years that's been decided by maybe 1 or 2 points only. So the competition's there, the rivalry's there. And I think that all of the Northeast division is better as a byproduct of having this happen at that Junior C level.
Yeah. No, like anything that makes GA more accessible, whether that be starting a ladies team, entering a new competition, Junior C definitely makes it just much more attainable for American kids to get out in the pitch and be competitive. But yeah, no, like you're saying, I totally agree. It's great to have a team nearby that you can just really compete with. Like I don't, yeah, as you were saying, I don't think there's ever been a game that we won easily or you won that easily. And I've no doubt on the weekend it's going to be that different. There's probably be a point or two in it. So looking forward to that.
So this Saturday we have this Saturday for anybody who's listening, we'll probably have this posted on 4th of July. So fireworks on 4th of July, but I'm sure on Saturday there will be some fireworks too. And it will be a great, exciting game, and no doubt it'll be a physical, skillful game, but again, there is that mutual respect there that what happens between the lines, we all go back to the bar after and, we have the crack, we talk about, what's going on for the rest of the year. And then we start planning for, fall events and spring games, because, that's, some people might disagree with this. And I think, Rory, you're on the same page with this. In my opinion, the Junior C division is your home base division. When you are recruiting home based players, American born players, and only having 3 Irish born players on the field at one time. Now, that's not to take away from Sean Ogues and, other just American based, like I know there's Delco in Philadelphia. But to have a whole division based on pretty much all American kids, in my opinion, is a success. And one of the success stories that's come out of the GA in the last, especially post-COVID. Would you agree with that, Rory?
100%. We need to be able to retain, if we're going to recruit and we're going to bring Americans in, or we're going to bring people, if we move this to a different country, we talk about Europe, you talk about Asia, you talk about Africa, South America, we're going to start clubs there. We have to recruit and retain and celebrate the people that are embracing our game. We're sharing it with them. It's our responsibility to make it something that they're celebrated in. I look at the Junior C competition. Not only is it this great place for the homegrown and for our home-based players, to me, there's something special about when you think about what it would mean to win, whether it's Northeast, whether it is to win the USGA, the Nationals. at that junior C level, because you are doing it with predominantly American born players. And that makes it very much like an American championship in some regards, right? So to be able to do it across the board relatively with your American peers, to me, those are the types of competitions. These are the types of divisions that are going to, if the GA is serious, if headquarters is serious about growing the game from a community standpoint, which they claim is the number one value, then doing it this way to me is the right way to do it. And this allows youth programs to come up together, to stay together, to have something to aspire to. And I think for me, if Junior C doesn't get introduced in the Northeast, and thankfully yourselves, Portland, Trinity, now Sean Oaks, right? If that doesn't happen, right, you're looking at a club like Hartford that has huge history, massive pride, takes their football very seriously down there throughout the course of the year. Where do they compete, and where can they remain competitive? How long would it have taken for our youth program to have caught up to the standard, right? Now, it might have, right? I do believe that we're going to have some of those 65 kids that are coming through, and they're going to make some teams, and hopefully I'll still be around long enough to see them play at the senior level. But ultimately, like, that gap could have been enough to, extinguish a club that really has no business being extinguished. So these are the opportunities that I think are going to allow us to flourish as opposed to perish going forward.
Do you see the potential of a junior D division?
Yeah, I love that idea. Junior D in the Northeast might provide a solution for a couple of things. There's a great youth program that exists both inside of the Boston city limits, as well as now programs that are cropping up and becoming, a lot more successful. And one of the things that we've noticed in our experiences is that we need somewhere to allow the 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are still developing an opportunity to play. At the same time, Gareth, like, one of the things that we've been chatting about is going, well, where do some of our players that maybe are just interested in playing a little bit, maybe they don't want to be as serious? And now you could have this great kind of mentorship, right, where you've got some players that are starting to age out of a junior B or junior C level. They want to play. You've got some young people who are learning the game. That's a brilliant atmosphere to allow, the development of players. I think that, going back to my point, and I've said this, and I tried to say this to anybody that would have listened to me during the era without junior C, was if we're doing everything that we can under the sun, recruiting, training 2 nights a week, doing indoor sessions, doing film sessions, if we're putting in the work and you have great people and you can't find success in the division that you're in, well, like, what else is there, right? The next answer was fundraising, right? The next answer was, okay, now we're going to have to go and raise money and go about this a different way. And that probably didn't fit the ethos of where we were at. So junior D could give the opportunity to grow the game further in a shorter amount of time. The question would always be sustainability, right? Could it be sustained in enough, long enough to get it off the ground? But I think even having the conversation, just by you asking the question, makes it a little bit more real today than maybe it was before it was brought up. So I know that, my ears have perked up a little bit hearing this idea. The idea will be brought back to our folks and to say, is this something that maybe we could sustain? And would this kind of open our player pool up maybe just a little bit wider and might help us bring in another 5 or 6 players a year?
Yeah. Also retaining players. I mean, we have 20, on a given Saturday there, if we have a game, we could potentially have, 20 plus players, and it's tough to get everybody a run out. But if you have that development team where, we have a very similar situation. We have a football team and a hurling team. Maybe that's the D is that, where some of the hurlers want to come in and just try it out, but, they might not be ready for that C division yet, but they have that D where it's, it's more development. It's not really focused on the winning. It's more of just getting games out, getting runs. And then maybe that, Irish guy that's in his 40s that just wants to go and kick about for 15 minutes just to get a runabout.
Yeah.
And you're going to actually keep that person longer term, because now you actually have something for them that is going to bring them to training once a week.
Yeah.
That's going to bring them back to games and making sure they're more involved in for, obviously you have events and sponsorships and tickets. So in my opinion, for clubs like us that's outside the Boston area. I think a D division is going to be crucial for our growth and, the division's growth in a whole.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And talking about the clubs that are dual code, and there's always the challenge: football and hurling. How do you keep it balanced? How do you deal with your dual players? How do you make sure you're supporting everybody? How do you keep the clubs integrated? I think you're onto something very beneficial for clubs that find ourselves in that scenario too, where you're trying to always develop rapport and create a bit of banter between the two teams. Football tends to often be more accessible. We do inter-squad scrimmages from time to time, hurlers and footballers, and the hurlers, usually can pick up the football and they're kind of away they go. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And I think it's those types of ideas. It's that types of being innovative, being entrepreneurial it's ours. It's our club. It's our game. We should be able to make what we need of it to make it work, to make it successful. So I really appreciate that vision. And I think there's more conversation hopefully to be had with other clubs. And maybe there's other clubs out there that aren't in the circuit right now that might be enough to say, okay, that feels comfortable to us. We can dive in on that.
Yeah. Even to add to the junior D thing, one thing I'd love to see is even more like kind of over 35s, over 40s competitions, for clubs like us that are just trying to grow however we can, getting as many people involved as possible is always a good thing, obviously. We talked about it a few times there. Like my father was out at it. He's 64 years of age. He's out at the over 40s hurling tournament out in Vegas, which is amazing to see. Like, love to see more things like that going on.
Yeah, and I think we can. And I've said this to Gareth prior to this. I said, getting the ladies going was huge for us because it's changing the dynamic. You have families, you have different people with different skill sets. You have people thinking outside of their needs, their wants, and thinking about how do we create for others. And, I appreciate these conversations because it just shows that sometimes like what you might think is your struggle or what you might think is just kind of going on in your backyard, there's, clubs around the world that are dealing with the same things. And I think that those of us that are outside of major circuits, it really is important that we're having more of these conversations. And that's, I think, one of the things the podcast has done has been having different conversations with different people so that you don't feel as sometimes isolated. You're doing your little piece and you're going, is this just me, right? Are we an anomaly? And you go, nope, right? Every club is dealing with some of the same things.
Do you think the conversation at some point needs to be had about the Irishborn homegrown player? And what I mean by this is, let's just say if you're Irishborn, you maybe played at home and you're, 46, 47, you're an American citizen, you've been with your club for 10 plus years. Should there be that different code, that's not punishing them to play? Because I know, let's just say if there is a junior D division and they say, listen, it's only going to be American based, but now you've just taken away those 3-4 people that were excited about coming back and now you can't play them. Is there almost something that needs to be done for those people? Because, I get it. Irishborn, you don't want to have a 25, 26-year-old ringer like Connor Green coming in and just, but it's true. You don't like it. It almost takes away from the division.
Yeah.
And where that junior D, if you have, every club has a couple of those. I know we have a couple of guys like that, who, they're not going to be, they're not going to be out kicking 4 or 5 points a game, but, they want to be in there playing a competitive game, but we don't really, there's nothing there for them.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that and what does it look like and how do we introduce that?
I agree. I've actually long struggled with the interpretation and the definitions of where players fall. Going back and reading it, I think that there's an opportunity for us to really go back and improve upon that language. I probably just signed up for a committee that I didn't want to, but right. I think the way that they're described to me is it's not as obvious. And I think that it places limitations on people for where they're born or where, kind of their circumstance. If one of our ethos is accessibility, then we have to be within so it's about creating balance. I'll tell you this. I think for me, somebody that's been here for X number of years, let's put a number on it, call it 10, right? Somebody that is maybe, a fabric of their community. They are, they're here and they have, basically outlived their youthful GA experience. We need those people to be involved in those games. And we have them in Hartford, and we've lost some of their involvement over the years, right? Like, all joking aside, there's lads that I see, my friends on, Friday night at youth, some of the coaches, some of the older guys who used to play. And I'm always like, come down. And, you can see the apprehension. They don't want to commit. Maybe they don't feel like they're fit. They don't feel like they can compete with some of the younger guys. But I'm like, no, but we want you there. I don't care. I just enjoy your presence. You're a book of knowledge. And they haven't, right? And generally, like, they haven't. They've stayed away. If we had a place that allowed them to go back and play, we're going to get more value out of them. And we owe it to them. I mean, some of those people are the reason that we exist, that we're still going. And then to like lock them out, it just seems kind of foolish. So I like the proposal. You said 46, 47. Maybe Mr. Green has the skills in his 60s, but I would be as far as to say 40 to me is like, and I mean, maybe you could make an argument to me that you could go younger. I know that there's still good footballers over 35, but I think that there has to be something done. We can't lock out many of the people who allowed us to be here today to not have access to the game. So that seems like a simple fix. It seems like local rules maybe could take some jurisdiction over that. But I think as we look at USGA definitions, I think there is opportunity to continue to fine tune, because we live in a global world. We're going to continue to have all sorts of different unique circumstances going forward. I think that we have to figure out a way to get the competition side of it right, but still make people feel like they're not being punished, one side or the other for who they are.
Yeah, no, I know. I personally, I would like to see them change maybe just make it one player, one team. No, I think it was a bit more relevant years ago when you had very, very little American players playing. Now it's kind of like you have a lot of these players playing that are very good, and it's like, should you be limited to having your 45-year-old Irish guy who's not even that great, probably didn't even play that much back home or something,
Right.
But
Yeah,
I think it's like some people have said to me, "Oh, how are you going to get American kids to play?" I think lots of ways we can get American kids to play without needing to, having to be restrained when how you can pick your team and all that, But
and I just think even too for players, Irishborn, but they're coming here. They've now lived here. They've immigrated. They're working here. They've set up. I mean, what's the appropriate clock look like, right? And we won't figure that out in the next 5 minutes here. But an open conversation, a focus group, a bit of research to figure out where do we think that the threshold for that supposed advantage wears off, because it does create sometimes a bit of a misnomer where, well, there's an expectation if you're Irishborn, therefore you're better than your compatriots on the other side. Yes and no. If we develop the game correctly, you could see that gap narrow. And I know that it's not going to narrow overnight. It may take 20 or 30 years, but that should be the goal in some regards, right? That you're developing the sport around the world and that the local talent is relatively on par. So I think that conversation won't happen today or tomorrow, but in the future, it very much could, if you start to see, talent gaps kind of start to narrow, if we continue our success at youth, if we continue our success at junior D, et cetera.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem too, this is a problem in GA all over back home definitely, is how are they vetting these competitions? Like, if you want to enter a junior C team, you'll see it. I've seen it time and time again. Playing GA growing up, like there's a team that will take that easy trophy. Like, they should be junior A, but they're junior C. And I think just from the powers that be vetting that, it can be achieved.
Yeah,
and if you do go junior C one year and you blow everybody out of it, you beat everyone by 30 points. Force them to go up junior A, junior B, whatever next year. Make them be on the other end of those blowouts. So.
Well, it is coming up to an election year. Obviously, there's going to be a whole new turnover of people, and I think our goal with this platform is to have the people that are running, to have them on the show to talk about, because these are real issues that clubs are dealing with, and I even talked to the guys at Portland You know, it's, you know, when they have 5, 6, 7 Irish lads sitting on the sideline, you know, you know, it's not fun for them. They're going to lose those people, you know, and those are people that have been in Portland for 10, 15 years, you know, who are American citizens at this point, but you can't play them because, you know, it's a 3 Irish rule, which I get, I'm all for. But, you know, maybe there is that, hey, listen, homegrown / overgrown.
Yeah. No, I think there's something to be said there. One of the things that, you know, we talk about sometimes challenges, right? So what's a challenge that we're facing, not just in the Northeast, but probably in North America, right? Is how do we find balance with sanctions? So let's talk about the good. To me, sanctions are great because it could change a young man or woman's life. They could come over for summer. They could find work, find a job, find a partner, find a new home, find a new culture, or take something they learned and they bring it back home. And that's amazing. Like, so I'm always going to support that because that is true to who we are, right? At the same time, balance to me is the key word. How do we find balance in the way that we go about it? How do we make sure that we're kind of sanctioning with balance to maintain the integrity of growth in the community standpoint? Because if you lift a lot of players from one community in Ireland, that means that community is also missing those people. And those are bright, young people who are important to that community probably. So are they being replaced? Should we have an exchange program? Should we, for every player that you bring over, you send somebody back, right? So now there's a benefit to both. Now we're talking, and that to me would be kind of more in the spirit of, you know, what you see with exchange programs that have existed relatively successful at universities, for example, like it has to be 1-for-1. There's an idea that would create balance, and I think it would force a bit of creativity. It would kind of make us think differently about homegrown as opposed to them just being a set of letters on your sheet. And that's kind of what I was saying, like reducing players to just, you know, away-based, home-based, homegrown, and just kind of tagging it. It does feel like it's tough. And, you know, Connor, you were mentioning about how we're grading. The other piece of the puzzle is like, it does feel as if we need, especially when we get down to a junior B, junior C type level, do we have shared grading, right? Do we have all the different divisions grading in the same way? I don't feel like we do. If we do, sometimes it doesn't showcase itself at the competitions. And I don't know, that's a difficult one. You're always going to have hopefully teams that progress and they exceed, and that's great. Let them have their year. But I think figuring out how we can have those systems created. Why is it important for people that are listening to this and being like, senior's the pinnacle, get to the top, get better, train harder, figure it out. Like, I hear you. But I think the other side of it is that retention has to be at the top of our mind, because that's what's going to happen. I'll bring it back. I mentioned COVID earlier, and I thought this would be kind of a good conversation for us to have talking about homegrown. So 2020 comes and the decision is made that ultimately there'll be no season. We were disappointed for two reasons in Hartford. We were disappointed because we wanted to play our football. We were disappointed because we were kind of going, yeah, we've actually been setting up for this. This is perfect. No sanctions, no players. Show up with who you've got, and we'll take what we've got. And win, lose, or draw, we were just kind of like, cool, this is going to be a true competition to whoever's here. We didn't get it. And I understand, of course, safety-wise. But there was a little bit of that kind of like, we were kind of like, oh, this will be great. We'll play with whoever's here. So that tells you, like, if we're feeling that way, that tells you that there is opportunity for us to just continue to just be open-minded, continue to think about ways that we can grow and retain. The balance of sanctions to me is something that would be beneficial to everybody from an economic standpoint, right? From the integrity of the communities back at home to the ones here, just giving balance and making sure that it's being done thoughtfully as to not strip anybody, any place. I worry about displacement of players when I look at some of the large numbers of players that do come over. I would have to wonder myself, if I was the 16th or 17th or 18th man on a roster and you're watching a huge number of players come over, you're probably going, right, well, I just got bumped down to A. Now I just got bumped down to B. And this is why you have a B division that's exceptionally good, because you had guys training in January who are losing spots. And so we recognize that in Hartford, as I'm sure you do in Worcester, that like when you go and play in the competitions, you might play some of the B teams, or you get a chance to play some of the mixed divisions that they have at the end of the season. The competition's fierce. Like, it's outrageously good, the quality of football. at least, in the Northeast, but really probably throughout the entire United States right now. And that's great. But I'd like to see us find balance in how we do it.
You just reminded me of a thing I saw on Facebook. I remember around 2020, different point now, but I remember somewhat seeing. I think I saw it on Facebook or something. Somebody was like, "Oh, we have to cancel all the preseason training. Nobody is fit. Like for 1 year only. Let's just go back to like big fat lads, just letting the ball do the talk for them. Just sublime piece of skill, no fitness whatsoever." Yeah,
you bring up a good point. Actually, that's something that is very interesting, where like an exchange, like almost like having a partner club back in Ireland, whether it's, even have a partner in each province, and say, you know what, if you have a younger lad that maybe wants to come out and experience America for the summer, but we have a 19, 20-year-old kid here that would love to go and play football in the summer, he's going to come back a better player. He or she is going to come back a better player. So it's a win-win for both parties, right? They could be set up with a host family, and you're building that great relationship with a club at home as well. That way, when we as a club then go back and have a challenge game, we have a place to stay, we have a feel, we're welcomed with open arms. I really think there is a benefit to that, and I would be very interested in exploring that, and see what interest would be of that.
Yeah, and reward a club. Maybe you started as a trial and you kind of incentivize it, so maybe there's some sort of financial incentive. Just because if there's not, teams will be always slow to develop. They'll do tried and true, but if not, then maybe does it become something where you have a quota, right? If you want to bring over, you exchange. It builds partnership. It builds loyalty. And I'll say one other thing too, Garrett, that comes to mind for me is, we had a young woman that was over here with us from, she was a Fulbright scholar, and she was with UConn from September to May. She didn't miss a training on a Wednesday night. She just seriously loved the atmosphere for football. She was so dedicated. And one of the best things that happened was she left. And the night that we were leaving, we were having a bit of a go-away party, and she came up. She did say to me, she goes, "I know I'm going home a better player." She goes, "My confidence is going to be through the roof going back home. Like, I feel like I'm a star." And she goes, "You guys helped me create that." We've had that experience on a few occasions with the kids over from UConn, just kind of messing about with us for the fall or for the spring. And they go home, and I've gotten text messages from players being like, "Thank you. You changed my confidence." And so there's so much for that player to gain. So this is why bringing players out is great, because that might change their trajectory as a GAA player. And we see so many of them that come to Boston and elsewhere do really well. But imagine what it would do for the American coming back, right? With that same level of confidence. It seems right now that balance is the piece, and an exchange program might be a simple way to encourage it.
Oh, you're on mute, Connor.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting idea. Like, even, like you're saying, vice versa, there could be a lot that an Irish player could gain by coming over here for a season, take, like, you might be an 18, 19, 20-year-old, struggling with confidence a little bit, like, might have all the skills, all the fitness and all that, but just struggling a little bit mentally, to come over here and get something going, some bit of confidence. Definitely could help an awful lot. And I think people are always up for it. People love that. That's the dream, like just going off, traveling somewhere, playing on a team, making new friends, So,
I think too, just on that point, like, the players coming over and in exchange, it would feel a little bit more authentic in some regards, probably for those of us that are in club scenarios that aren't fully boosted, right? So if it's a cash flow situation, like that puts some strains on those of us maybe outside of economic markets where you don't have maybe third or fourth generation Irish or really successful Irish immediately in the club that can pump money in. So it might create a little bit of, it might reduce a barrier as well from a financial standpoint, that it's not just, can we afford it, but it's also, do we have the relations? Are we manifesting the right thing? And are players coming over, to your point, Connor, and are they having a good experience where they're going home and saying, yeah, that made me a better player. They tell the little brother or little sister, hey, you should go over there and have a good experience. I think it's been done at the senior level exceptionally well. Like, you see these lineages of the teams, which is very cool. But I think there's a gap, and maybe a program of this nature would allow the gap to be narrowed. We create more opportunities for young Irish men and women to get this experience, but we also then return the favor and we send, some of them back home.
So before we start wrapping up, what advice would you give to somebody that maybe were, thinking about getting involved with Gaelic football? What would your message be to them?
We've had some good recruiting here over the last 6 or 7 months, brought on a number of new first-year players. And the thing that I'm often trying to tap into them is to tell them that they have something that we need. And I think when you're recruiting somebody in the pub, or when you're recruiting somebody at an event or a barbecue, I think that it's very natural for human nature to think about your pride or your ego. And I think that we deal with a lot of struggle because I think Americans are going to kind of go, I'm not going to be good at that, right? It's like, why would I do something I'm not going to be good at? And I can't blame them, right? I don't go around doing a tremendous amount of things that I'm not good at. But I think the one thing that's helped is trying to make an appeal to people that love community, to make an appeal to people that appreciate the opportunity to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves, and they'll find their way. So maybe you're not the best footballer on day one, but you're really good at taking photographs and you're actually a great photographer. And all of a sudden now in the first game, you take 25 amazing photos. Those photos help the PRO out. Now the public relations better. Now you're recruiting a couple more players and you're going back to that person and saying, that's you. You did that. You're the most, one of our most valuable players a couple of years ago, jokingly, was a man who works in the school systems, and he was able to just kind of latch on to 2 or 3, and those 2 or 3 multiplied to 5 or 6. And we said, hey, you're the most valuable person on the team this year because you did more for what we did on the field than anybody that was on the field. So to boil it down, the GAA will give you an opportunity for your skills to be cherished or heralded. You will be celebrated for whatever you're good at, as long as you show up and do it. And I think that means if you're great at raising money, go raise money. If you're great at kicking ball, go kick ball. And I think we're a very special place where we'll welcome you because we know, right, if you have a good program, we know we can tap into what it is that you're good at and make you feel hopefully cherished for that. So, and that's not always easy to convince people, but I think when we break through, it's probably one of the most rewarding parts of why, we're doing what we're doing, why you guys are doing this podcast, because you recognize that those breakthrough moments that kind of fuels you up and keeps you going for another couple of weeks until you get another one.
Powerful message, huh?
Yeah.
I love it. And, this episode we were talking, we'll hit 30, 40 minutes, but, with this one, it's, you could sit and talk about it all night because it's, it's a lot of great points and, but we will start to wrap up. But, Rory, obviously we have a great relationship with you and Hartford, and we'll continue to keep this conversation going as much as we can. And I think we all mutually agree, the growth of Gaelic football and the potential in Gaelic football is huge. And anything we can do together to help grow and make it better. So,
yeah, and I just want to thank Gareth, yourself, Connor. Again, this work that you're doing is not lost on any of us. The Hartford lads down here and the ladies team have been sent the podcast, and they're listening, they're tuning in. I know they'll be probably listening into this one, and it's spreading the word. And this type of effort is outrageously important, and I hope that everybody that's in your corner, appreciates it and kind of look after the whole progress, because these are the types of things that make this game special. These are the types of things I think that help us stand out and attract players. So this is the next generation. This is you guys utilizing the new channels that exist. And I'm just super happy for you. And I know that there's probably some long nights and a lot of work that goes into it, but it's appreciated by everybody, and please keep it going. And we're all very grateful for it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on, Rory. We really appreciate it. And thanks to our sponsors, Masita. Thanks to everyone who's listening out there. Do us a favor, if you like this episode, give us a like, follow, subscribe, whatever you can do. We appreciate it. And thanks, and we'll see you next time.